Kia ora koutou katoa, nau mai and welcome to He Kōrero I Ōpōtiki, a kōrero where we have a chat about things that are happening in Ōpōtiki. My name is Ivor Jones, and I'd like to introduce Debi Hokart. We're citizens of Ōpōtiki that like to get together and have a chat about things that are affecting our community. So I'd just like to welcome you all. Welcome, Debi.
Kia ora. Welcome to everyone who's listening.
Cool. We've got two eyes on. If you've got questions, please, if you're looking through Facebook, just add a comment in there and it'll come across to us, and then we can answer any questions that you might have. This is also being streamed to YouTube as well, so it's documented there as a record, and yeah, that's the way we're going to do it. So today we're just going to do a bit of, if I can ask everyone just to take a 20-second moment of silence. Don't pay attention to your thoughts, just let them all go by. We'll descend to a place called Te Kore, that's my understanding, where everything begins and everything returns to, and then we'll come back to this space. And we're doing that just to clear the space of ill intention, both from those who have gone before us and those who are living here, because we can't project our intention into other spaces. So this is just an attempt to clear that space. So if we could just have a moment's silence, that'd be cool. Kia ora, everyone. Thank you very much for that. We've cleared the space. And the first subject we were going to talk about tonight was Te Matatini, which happened this weekend. Debi's just told me that the video won't work on this, but this is Māori TV, Te Ao Māori News Channel, and you'll see that Aquaman came along and had spent some time with Kingi Heitia. But you'll see here is Te Whanau Āpanui. Can you hear that, Debi?
Carl, no.
Carl, it's not coming through. But it's really fantastic to see that Te Whanau Āpanui just down the road, the champions in the Māori Olympics for this year. So we'll just jump to Radio New Zealand website. Why do I want to go here? I want to go here because they've got some fantastic photos. So we'll just have a look here, Te Whanau Āpanui. I'll get my big head out of the way. There we go. Here are the champions, Mr. Waka. Here in the stands. And force again. Hangitu. Ngā te rangi wewehi. Manga tāwhiri. Neat costumes, eh?
Beautiful.
Well, what do you think, Debi? Te Matatini gets $2.9 million versus the New Zealand Ballet, who gets millions, 5 times as much.
Yes, I saw that. I heard that discussion on the TV, and I was quite shocked, to be really honest. There was the New Zealand Ballet and another group, and Matatini gets 3 times the audience, or 4 times the audience, I think they said, but they got a quarter of the money. So I definitely think there's a push needed, a big push to get some more funding. It was wonderful. I watched some of it on Friday. I watched Ōpōtiki Mai Tawhiti at college with the students, and then I watched it all day yesterday, and it was just I'm glad I wasn't a judge, to be really honest. I did scroll through lots. I did look at lots intermittently on replay, but they were all wonderful, absolutely. But definitely they need some more funding. They said there was an incredible amount of people went through the gates. Did you hear the number that went through the gates? It was amazing.
No, I didn't. But yeah, it looks fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
All
it was
right.
wonderful, and well done to the winners.
Now we're gonna move on to a letter to the editor. Specifically, this letter to the editor. And this letter to the editor was written by you to Ōpōtiki News on the 9th of February. Was that about right?
That's
Debbie?
about right. It took a couple of weeks to publish it because it got lost.
So, do you want to talk a bit about the background to this letter?
Yes. So I started off talking about the secret meetings that Mike Fletcher always called workshops, which they were never intended to be secret. It was where we sat and discussed information, and then once we had worked through everything, that information would then go into an agenda to be discussed at a meeting. I know that those workshops are still happening and they're not open to the public, but the new council have decided it would be a good idea to put the minutes up. I haven't actually seen them, but I believe that you can go and see the minutes of the workshops, which is a good learning. You know, you have to learn all the time. But to call them secret meetings is really, I call it mischievous. He doesn't call it mischievous. But it is, because it's misleading. And then my other issue there was about the councillor who didn't declare a conflict of interest at the meeting in February, I believe it was, and did have a pecuniary interest, and it should have been declared, but it's gone nowhere. No one said anything about it, and I just think that is mischievous as well, you know, because if you do have a pecuniary interest, it's your obligation to admit to that and then not to vote on the issue. So but that didn't come up. Mike Fletcher didn't address that in his reply to me at all.
And his reply to you, which is here.
Yes.
Let's have a look-see.
Yeah.
Silence the issue. It is always dangerous to assume, but I figure Debi Hokard is referring to me, whom she describes as a regular opinion contributor. There we go, February 9, Ōpōtiki News. Despite my opinion pieces carrying my name and an email address which attracts lively exchanges, Ms. Hokard lost her seat at the last election. Her policy of largely remaining silent at council meetings and supporting the mayor was not a winner. She may have said lots at the workshops. The public does not know. The workshops were not open to the people, and despite what Ms. Hokard says, any meeting that is not open to the people is a secret one. Ms. Hokard accuses me of being mischievous. Rubbish. My writing style is blunt. Clarity. The aim. Clarity. Ms. Hokard was part of the council that held lots of public excluded workshops. The people had no idea of what went on. The councillors did not tell the voters. They were gagged by a code of conduct, or mostly so. Ms. Hokard paints a benign picture of workshops whose portrait may be true. The people do not know. He sounds like Tucker Carlson. Closed meetings and gagged councillors spell secret. I assume, Ms. Hokard, I will continue to comment without fear or favour on issues. The district council and other organisations. As a journalist since 1960, I have shone the torch in dark places and poked the bear, all aimed at holding people and institutions to account and letting people know what is going on. Did you like that dramatic voiceover?
Yes, very much.
Now,
I must admit, I did chuckle when I first read it, and then I just thought, oh, this is ridiculous. So, you know, the thing about being quiet at meetings, I will say that I often didn't get involved with the argy-bargy, because what I did was that I would send emails to the managers, or they would go to the CEO and then they would be forwarded to the managers, and I'd get my questions answered before the meeting. So that helped me make my decisions before the meeting, so that I was just trying to make things go a bit more smoothly, really, to have things already explained to me beforehand. So I would often just sit there and listen to what everybody said. And I definitely wasn't the silent one. That's a misdemeanor from him, but that's fine. But I never did not vote either, which he doesn't mention. I voted at everything we ever passed, which others can't say they did. And I always knew, no matter how difficult or how much I disliked the decision, I knew I had to make a yes or a no. So I always did that because I felt that was my obligation. And if I didn't have to be part of it kind of was arguing sometimes, but because I had the information beforehand, I often didn't have to do all those questions in the meeting. And it was my way of being prepared, basically, being prepared for the council meeting.
Can I do another dramatic voiceover, please, Debbie, of your letter?
Sure, you go for it.
Okay, to the editor. I note with interest that the I Ōpōtiki District Councillors had a workshop on Tuesday, the 24th of January 2023. I will be interested to see whether your regular opinion contributor will note that in this week's paper and whether he will now state that secret meetings are occurring with the new council. The workshops have never been secret, just workshops, where information is sorted through, new information sought, and a direction or position advised. Your contributor has been very mischievous in his continuing attitude to these meetings by calling them secret meetings, but let's see if that continues. I also wonder if he noted that at the last council meeting, a councillor who will remain unnamed did not declare a conflict of interest and voted on an issue that they definitely had a pecuniary interest in. 2 councillors declared their interest and refrained from voting. The Local Authorities Act 1968 makes it clear that elected members must not vote or take part in the council discussion if they have a pecuniary interest in the decision. Recognising and disclosing conflicts of interest is vital to ensure transparency and accountability in local government. Can we really believe that our councillors are going to be transparent and open? I would suggest that they have got off to a bad start. Any further comment, Debbie?
Well, I suppose I could say it's good that the new council have made some changes so that once they've had their secret meeting, that then the minutes that are recorded are going up in a public forum so everyone can see. It doesn't mean that all the discussion is in, it's just the minutes that they've noted from that discussion. So that hasn't changed. They are still workshops where the public are excluded.
But Mikey says the veil is lifted on workshops.
He does say that. Only, and probably he's saying that because now you can read the minutes publicly, and that's great. But all the conversation that went on in those workshops, I don't believe is there. But I haven't read them yet. I haven't gone in and read any. But I would suggest that not all the conversation is there. It's the general, what they came up with at the end.
So Mr. Fletcher says I Ōpōtiki Mayor David Moore has kept his word. Notes of in-committee workshops, secret meetings are being made public. Mr. Moore campaigned on the need for the council to be more transparent. Beginning on December 20, the council has held 3 workshops, according to the council. Notes of these gatherings have been posted on the Ōpōtiki District Council's website. Topics discussed include an update on harbour progress, the process for the ongoing long-term plan, progress with the council-owned building being put up on lots 9 and 10 in Church Street, vehicles on beaches, the resource consent needed for the wastewater treatment plant. The notes are general and lack detail on finance. Under previous administrations, the business of workshops was confined to council and staff. Next week, 2 committee meetings will be held, as well as the Coast Community Board gathering. The first meeting of the Strategy, Planning and Regulatory Committee will be held on February 27. The Risk and Assurance Committee will meet on February 28, as will the Community Board. All meetings will be open to the public. The SPR is one of several new committees Mr. Moore has set up aimed at keeping more business more transparent.
Those meetings were always open. But people didn't come to them because they're not very the risk and assurance, it kind of is interesting, but it can be quite boring as well. But also they weren't available for a long time online, so that kind of excluded people from coming to them. So some changes have been made. But he's still saying the notes are general and lack detail and finance. Well, you know, I bet they talked finances. They had to, but until they've pinned it down and know exactly what it's going to be, they don't put it out in the public, because it just causes distress when it's not what's going to be decided. It's just being thought about. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
Cool. Good. Yep. I'm going to chuck in here also that there was an article in one of his editorials where he said that the land on Bridge Street was being purchased by Kainga Ora for social housing, and then he said at the bottom of the article in the second last paragraph, I note that there are some houses for sale around that area. What does that tell you? And if that's not mischievous or misleading, then I'll eat my hat, because I've driven around there. There's one house that's for sale there that has actually been on the market for at least a year, and that was the only house I could find for sale. That is just, that is so discriminatory. That is ridiculous. I can't understand how no one hasn't jumped up and down. But he did put it in the second last paragraph, so if you got sick of reading it, you wouldn't have seen it there. Yeah, that was very misleading information. Yeah.
Anything else of interest in the Ōpōtiki community that you might like to talk about then?
Just Matatini's probably on top of my agenda at the moment, because it's a really good, really good story. Really, it's just wonderful. And it was lovely to hear how Wairoa managed to get to Auckland for Matatini. I just heard someone talking about on national radio, and how they had to get a vehicle and they had to get everyone together, and then the vehicle broke down, and there was just a lot of people having to get involved to get them there, which I just think is absolutely wonderful. It's just so positive. It was just great.
Yeah, I saw a news story about how the groups from the Hawke's Bay area, Whangara, etc., how, you know, they were sort of heartbroken with having to leave all of that, but
yes,
the whānau at home was saying, go and represent us and do all of that, and then come back and help us when it's all done.
The organisers of the whole thing talked to each of those groups individually and said, are you okay? And they said, yes, send them. They've got to go. They've got to be there. So that was really awesome. That was wonderful. Really wonderful.
Did you sit in front of the TV, Debbie? I saw you did a post about, I shouldn't cook and watch Te Matatini at the same. What was that about?
I burnt my muesli twice, because you have to keep turning it, and I'm sitting there with my eyes glued. It's like, muesli. So I had to pick all the little burnt bits of coconut out. Yeah, I was pretty glued to it yesterday. I hadn't been able to watch it much during the week, only doing the replays in the evening, but I was pretty glued to the screen yesterday.
Yeah, and on TVNZ you can go and stream it, so you can watch any of the performance. I think it's still there, which is fantastic.
Yes, yeah, it is fantastic. It's wonderful. And I see it's in Taranaki in 2025, so I think I'll get my tickets and get on down there. Yeah.
Great. Well, I see we've got a couple of viewers that are still viewing us, but I think we've come to the end of this session. Debbie, what do you reckon?
There's any questions in there?
Nah. No one's asking any questions.
Okay. I did manage to read through Mike Fitch's opinion piece, and I just see in the bottom there he did say something about Ōpōtiki amalgamating with Whakatane and kōrero into one East Bay Council. I thought, whoa, I'm not sure. That debate's been around for a very, very long time, but I just worry what happens to up the coast if we were to amalgamate with Whakatane.
How does the community board function operate at the moment with Ōpōtiki, given that Te Kaha has a community board? What is that interaction like with the district council?
When I was on council, it was actually very, very good because Louis was very active. But they're still only bringing one voice in, and that's the problem, I believe. It depended how many community boards you were going to have, I suppose. You could have one for Ōpōtiki, you could have one for that area that I stood in, which is Waitahi, Waiaweka, Otara. You could have one for the coast and maybe one for out at Ohiwa. But if there's only one representative for Ōpōtiki and one for up the coast, then you're only two voices against a much bigger picture. And money will always go into those bigger areas that if they desperately need it, and it won't. I mean, we know that happens. And it would just mean that we would have to struggle really hard to get things that we needed. The three communities are quite different. You know, even though we're rural areas, our needs are quite different. We're probably more similar to kōrero than Whakatane in lots of ways. But I think it would be a mistake to be looking at amalgamation. Definitely sharing services is a really good idea. Doesn't mean you have to amalgamate. You just share services, which is what's happening already. We do share services. Yeah.
Can you give an example of shared services across the councils?
Well, regional council provides some of the IT. They usually provide the iPads for all the councillors, and I'm not sure if they do the maintenance on the computers or not. And I think sometimes it works where there's a need as well, when you see that you're short of engineers, so you might share them with another area. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be the Eastern Bay of Plenty that you share with. It could be with a bigger area that might have 4 engineers on their team, and if we only had 1. So you can share in other areas as well.
And perhaps a final question for tonight. With all the natural disasters and flooding that's happening, what are your thoughts on Three Waters now?
Interesting. Well, I always thought that it probably should happen, but not quite in the way it was planned. I definitely think that government should be taking responsibility for ensuring we've got clean water and that we can get rid of our wastewater. Definitely. Definitely. And in situations like we've got now, they have to put the money in there and they have to go ahead and do it.
And my understanding is that the water portion of your rates notice will be removed from the council's control or authority to spend. Is that right?
I can't answer that. I can't answer that one. I'm not 100% certain about that.
Yeah, so the council won't be able to use any of that money because it'll be whipped off to
somewhere else.
The infrastructure. Yeah.
But my understanding would be that it would come back to this area, but that's not always what. Yeah. I personally think that every council should say where their defects are in their systems, in the 3 systems, and they should say put in a cost, and then each council gets that money to do that job. That's what I thought should happen. It should be a bit more identified to different areas.
Now I can see Katrina has just come in. Katrina, do you want to come in and we'll just ask a few questions? Or are you okay just to sit there? You're okay just to sit there? Or do you want to come in? Looks like Katrina wants to come in. You want to come in, Katrina?
Katarina.
Yes. Katarina.
Katarina.
Kia ora, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you for dropping in.
Kia ora. I don't know how many other people are with us here, but I just wanted to ask, Mike Fletcher has been getting away with this nonsense time and time again, and I'd like to find a way to try and show people what an absolute idiot he is and how disingenuous his comments are and his arrogance displayed. I'm being quite blunt here. In all his pieces. pretty outrageous, really. I think his implications in his letter to the back to the editor in response to Debi's letter was just downright insulting. He's sort of consistently not moving on and talking about the previous council being bad, and he's a real fanboy of the new council. And he uses, I think Ivor mentioned there, he's doing the Carlson trick of saying, and it's also a Clyde Trump trick, which is this may or may not be true, but. And he puts it up, and it's really, I think mischievous is quite a nice word to use, actually.
A polite word.
A polite word to use for it. It is disingenuous, and he is putting his views of the current council, he thinks is fabulous and everything is going well. Of course, did not mention the conflict of interest of Barry Howe, who was the councillor who shall not remain, or who shall remain nameless according to Debi. But I think we need to name him, as I did in a previous letter, saying much the same thing as Debi had said. This conflict of interest, which Mike Fletcher treats as that they were gagged by the code of conduct. It's there for a reason. Processes have to be followed to get things done, and certain things are sensitive, are confidential information which cannot be shared with the public until serious decisions have been made, and there are processes that have to be followed, which includes a code of conduct. Otherwise, the opposite to that is corruption, and that's what having a pecuniary interest in something and making decisions about it means. Which I can't believe this has been let go, that Barry Howe has consistently broken code of conduct and has not been called out on it by either the councillors or the mayor. Well, the mayor, previous mayor, did. My partner Lynn did call him out on code of conduct, and utterly slated by Mike Fletcher on this. So yes, I'd just like to know. Sorry, my question, Ivor, I apologise for going on so long. I'd just like to know how we can confront Mike Fletcher and let people know that what he's saying is balderdash.
After jiu-jitsu training today, we call it church. I went to New World. Beep, 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 swiping my stuff. Turn right. And who do I see in the next cubicle beside me? Mr. Fletcher. Swiping his. I was going to go over and say, "Kia ora, Mr. Fletcher. Blah, 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 blah. We're going to be talking about you tonight. See you online." But I chose not to. So I feel there's a momentum sort of building up. So some people are seeing and I say again, full one-page or double-page opinion piece spread bang in the middle of Ōpōtiki news. And you wonder, opinion piece bang in the middle? The stuff he talks about, very Tucker Carlson, Fox News, if people go and have a look, that's a rock show. Tucker Carlson, very similar language style, all in to suck people in and make you go, perhaps, these vaccines don't work. And then we go down a rabbit hole. So, Katarina, thank you very much for raising that and for bringing some salient points to the conversation. I think momentum is building, and there will be some conversations that will be had with Mr. Fletcher and his approach. And obviously, Ōpōtiki News is being funded is supporting this type of language. So if people have concerns, perhaps approach them directly and talk about how his views may be having a negative effect in the community.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think it's a good idea, yeah.
But thank you very much,
thank
Katarina,
you.
for coming in and adding those very salient points to the conversation. We're coming up to 30 minutes again, Debi. We're right on time. This is on YouTube. It is on Facebook. You can share it around if you want, folks. This is a space where citizens, residents of Ōpōtiki can come together and have a kōrero about things that are affecting their community. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Katarina and Debi, for coming in tonight, and for everyone. And Mātua later on.
Matua. Thank you, Ivor.
Thank you. Ka kite.
Ka
Thank you, Ivor. Thank you, everyone.
We are out.